Ati, your son is brain dead. Kube ngathi angimuzwa ukuthi uthini. Ngithi so what? Just like that. Ngithi so what? Ati your son is brain dead. Ngithi I said so what? Then Loesfazane asked, okay, the other thing that we must tell you is because the brain is dead, it can't control anything. Your son will start decomposing.
Oh my God.
That cut me like a sharp sword cutting my heart. Ngithi, I don't care. So when I kiss him in the mouth, I smelled this odor, and I called the nurse. I'm like, do you brush his teeth? And then they're like, yes, 3 times when you bath him. Ngithi, but when you get close to the mouth, there's this odor that's coming out. Yeah, we've started noticing that it's coming from inside. So I put my hand around his head like this, so take the mic as his head. And then my head was on his chest, and then I was holding his hand. I was looking at the monitor. My sisters were crying, the nurse was crying. Just looked at the monitor. Then it was counting.
Hello and welcome back to the Hope Revolution podcast. My name is Mrado and I am overjoyed to have you as part of this amazing episode once more. We are back in this amazing studio to talk about something that is going to uplift both you and I. So let's both open our eyes and ears and be ready to engage, comment, and listen. The purpose of this platform is so that we could come together, talk about whatever it is that we're going through and try to see if we can connect, because together we're stronger. If we're separated, there's less we can do. We're going to talk about some, painful experiences that someone has gone through where you and I can both learn. So thank you so much for engaging, subscribing, and we really see your support. We know that you watched our last episode and the last one, and you're back again for this main episode that we're on. So for that, we're really grateful. Keep liking, sharing, and commenting. My name is Mraro, and from me and the guys in studio, let's do this. Today, we've got Umama who has come through to also share her story. Sawubona, mama.
Sawubona butho.
Siko.
Ngiyaphila na.
Siyabonga. Umama ngathi ubani?
Oh, mina ngunana.
Okay.
But that's my nickname.
Okay.
Amagama ePass Thembelihle Precious Mashinini.
For the purpose of this episode, we'll call you
just say
Unana.
Nana, yes.
Yeah, it's a nice nickname. I guess the people who give me nicknames are Benedict, because I've never found one that I'm like, yeah, this is... So mhlambe ungasitshela ukuthi unana ubani, ukhula kanjani, umuntu onjani, just generally, so that we can get context of ukuthi unana ubani.
Unana is a mother, a wife, a sister, friend, colleague. Ngumangumalo.
Okay.
And then I'm married to the Mashinini.
Okay.
I'm a mother of 3, 1 girl and 2 boys.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I'm from KZN.
Okay.
But now I'm based here in Northwest, actually.
In the Northwest.
Yeah.
Okay. No, nice.
Yes.
And how was the transition from where you grew up in KZN and you came to the Northwest? Did you have to undergo a transition to fit in there? Was it a thing for you? How was that experience?
Not necessarily. So I grew up in KZN, studied there, and started my job there, SRP, which was closer to home.
Okay.
Because I'm from Emandini, up north.
Okay.
Then I moved to Durban. I worked at Engine Refinery. And then I moved to Cape Town. So I stayed in Cape Town for 10 years.
All right.
I think that's where I needed a transition, because Cape Town is the Europe of South Africa.
Yeah.
So there were some adjustments that
you
had to happen. And the fact that I had to move alone and leave my boyfriend, who's now my husband, and my daughter back home, because I moved during the year.
Okay.
Yeah. So Then I stayed in Cape Town for 10 years. And then we moved to Northwest.
Okay.
Actually, we moved to Joburg first because we stayed in Fourways. And then we moved to
Northwest.
Northwest.
Okay.
For me, it was okay, but now I realize Gucci with the kids, because we always think the kids adjust easily. I think in between I'll share.
Okay.
I saw a letter. It was not a letter, a paper that my late son, wrote. I think it was for assignment at school. That he had a problem adjusting because he's got friends in Cape Town. He moved to Joburg. Okay, the communication will be there, but eventually it slows down. Then we're staying in Fourways. He's going to Redham House. Got new friends. Then we're moving now to Artis. So I think that for a number of years, it made him uncomfortable. And in that assignment that he was writing, he mentioned to Guti he was struggling to fit in. And he had to become a people's pleaser.
Okay.
So that he can fit in. And then he said, I watched my parents' life going on while mine is just stopping. But he said, I can't blame them. They had to move for work so that we can have the things that we need.
Yeah.
But then I realized, unfortunately, I only saw that after he had passed away. So that's another thing I think as parents that we need to keep in mind, because we always think, the kids will adjust.
Yeah.
But it's not as easy as we think.
Akubanga easy.
Yeah.
Because whenever umzali uyazi ukuthi like nala ngikhona manje ngiyenzani inethalana.
Yeah.
So it's easier for you because as usho ukuthi you were transitioning between was wafika lapho.
Yeah.
So kuwe bese into ijwayele. Futhi I
Yes.
think as an adult it's easy to understand ukuthi why into yenza
Yenzakala, yes.
But as a child, Nami, I remember CSA move from, and it wasn't too far from there. Last move corner, we used to stay Eshawela.
Yeah.
So base renta. So mama watoli indlu a Protea South.
Yeah.
So it's like maybe 10, 12 kilometers distance.
But, yeah.
So at school, I struggled, especially the first week or month, because bengizodlala khona la ngidlala khona. Angiye ekhaya because ekhaya akusesela.
Yeah. Sekule.
Sometimes umama bekuzomela ngilande le kulomuzi la besirenta khona. Senilele nogogo lapha kulomuzi. So I understand, and I guess as abazali we're chasing, a lot of things. So it also nathi we can't blame ourselves too much because we know the other side ukuthi it's either udila nalento le or you've got worse to deal with.
Yeah, but I think the one thing that I've learned in that situation is noma ngabe sicabanga ukuthi bancane kangakanani, it's important to ukubahlalisa and explain to look, mommy is moving, so we're all gonna move to Joburg or to KZN because I've got another job which is better than the one that I'm doing. So we're all gonna have to move. So we hardly sit down and have that conversation with them. We're like, Sagehanj,
Aye.
no?
Yeah.
And we forget ukuthi iba impact kangakanani.
Affect.
Yeah. And especially abantwana bethu manje abafani nami. Nakhula ngekhathi zakudala. So standard, not a grade. So bona they understand things easily. And they are very prone to depression. And when I was to depression, mama kubezokufaka impama.
Yeah.
Actually mhlambe bengayazi nokuthi yini yona lo depression. But bona manje they understand a lot of things. So
on a certain level, I think laba manje bakhula basebancane.
Yes.
And yinto abafakile depression because of information overload.
Correct.
Kunezinto njengomntana mina back then bezenzakala kodwa bengazi understand bezingekho nje nasengqondweni.
Correct.
So I could block them out easily, but for laba bamanje from a young age nje ukutshela indaba zakho. So I
they've
think
got access to social media, to even at school, like ngihlale ngihleka ukuthi yes ngabe ngafunda kule ekole ngabe ngiprofessor today because sometimes when I help my kids with homework I'm like, I only started to learn this when I was in varsity. So a grade 5 student learns these things,
You
know. So
imagine. Yeah, I think it's one of those things where the tools ekumele sibe nazo manje esabazali azifani nalezi zabazali bethu.
Correct.
And a lot of us asiyiboni lento le until when things just go haywire. Ubona ukuthi I want ukuthi ngenzeni, like yini bekumele ngiyenzile, but the whole skill set or the tool set that we have currently, I find, and unfortunately we never take courses on how to be a parent.
Exactly.
So we can't blame ourselves, but it's also important nathi esabazali ukuthi sizifundise, because there are people that are actually sharing this kind of content.
Correct.
Njengomzali.
Yes.
I remember I attended one of the parenting classes at Brainy Bright. I'll mention them because they're doing a great job. I've got a 3-year-old, so I attended a parent session. I was so informed. Yeah, when I went back to my mangane, I knew ukuthi okay, mekwenzakala so yini kumele ngiyenze, because in most cases I'll be very emotional. And that will impact on her behavior.
Yes.
So I think ukufunda nje, it's a very nice thing. So ngathi unabantwana abayingaki currently?
So 72.
Okay.
Because my 17-year-old passed away.
Also sorry to hear that.
In June this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then
so I'm left with one girl who's the firstborn and the lastborn.
Okay.
So the one who passed was the middle one.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then endlini nihlala ningaki njengamanje?
So endlini, it's me, my husband, and the 2 kids and my other son who's sitting there, Junior.
Yeah.
He's actually my nephew, but Mtanam.
Yeah. Siyabonga Junior. The reason I asked this question is for context.
Yes.
Because your story is deep and it touches a lot of pockets of you and the people around you. So I want people to have background.
Yes.
So maybe if you don't mind, asiqaleke ngodaba lwakho, but maybe siqale with the victim or lo muntu oshile umntanakho.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure you are here for him. I wanted to just know about him ukuthi before singene endabeni bekumuntu onjani.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think maybe need to reverse back, then come back to your question. So, mina mangikhula, I lost my parents. I'm the eldest. We are 3 girls.
Okay.
So I lost my parents when I was 19. I think I was going to turn 20. So ngakhula, I had to be a mother to my sisters, my little sisters. And so ubusha ngibaz, that teenagehood. And fortunately, I think God had planned for me because I finished school very early. I was 15 when I finished matric.
Okay.
And then I went to varsity and I got a bursary, I got a job. Nkulunkulu knew ukuthi I'm going to have to be a provider and a mother to, I think my second sister was 13, then my last sister was 10. Yeah. So I had to become a mother to them. And fortunately, when I met my husband, he became a father to my sisters.
Okay.
So yeah, I think in summary, that's how I grew up.
Okay.
And lokho kwangenza ngaba strong.
Okay.
Because I had to fight for my sisters. Bantu bangathatha advantage ukuthi we are just girls and so yeah. Then back to Ukethelo. That's my son, my late son. Ukethelo, he was born in Cape Town when I had moved to Cape Town. I was born in 2007, July 19. And ukule naughty, like umtana, like not naughty in a bad way, but I remember when he was young, he will drink his milk, and then when he's done, he'll just take the bottle and throw it away. And he'll go to the kitchen and put potatoes in the fridge, the nappies in the fridge, like he was that naughty child in that way. So Wakula, and then he started going to crash, going to Blowback International School in Cape Town. And I was telling my husband recently, Guti, come to think of it, he grew up as a spoiled child. Not in a bad way, but spoiled in that because he was the firstborn. Remember, the firstborn is a girl. So you know Abu Baba and Abu Mama, a boy child.
Yeah.
And also the fact that Ekaya ke kumfana, so all of us, even my sisters, we were happy because, oh, we have a boy now.
Yeah.
So he was very spoiled. And back then, because I was working for another company in Cape Town, I used to travel a lot.
Okay.
And I think I would compensate by whatever he wants. If I remember, I think back on a PS2, then mangene PS3, akasayifuna PS2, sefuna PS3.
Yeah.
Uyathengelo. And he used to play those Lego things that were very expensive, the puzzles. So
Oh, yes, I see.
you must buy. If I had to phone this Lego thing, you buy, you know. And then, yeah, wakula, and then we headed my last born.
Okay.
So, okay, Bakamtuana. Then we moved to Joburg, and then he started being very close to his younger brother.
Okay.
So ukule umntwana very. So as a mover, ama stages, I think when from 7 years upwards, he was very introverted.
Okay.
So his friend was Unkanyi's, the young brother. And then we moved to Artis. I think that's where he was really struggling to connect with my classmates. He felt maybe like an outsider. And then that solidified a relationship with a younger brother.
Okay.
So even when we're going somewhere, we'll be like, okay, guys, we're going somewhere. He'll be like, no, I'm staying. I'll stay with Nkanyezi. You guys can go. And he never used to go anywhere unless maybe we travel to KZN. But Kabo Makelwane, like I'll force him, go and play with the other kids. Kabo Makelwane. Oh. No, his friend was Nkanyezi. Up until teenagehood. So teenagehood, he became my best friend. So I think I'm a best friend Gababuak. Then teenagehood, he became my best friend because he now started asking questions. I remember, I think he was 12 or 13, and then he started asking questions. Ma, how did you meet Dad? Like, no, someone named 17. And then, okay, obviously, school and they do, what is the subject? Life orientation. So he'll come back and say, so ma, eskoleni, they were saying, if I sleep with a girl, the girl will be pregnant. So it means I can't sleep with you. Then we'd know, man, Katie, ask your dad these things.
Yeah.
These are the conversations you're supposed to have with your dad.
Yeah.
And then he'll say, ma, I asked Dad, and then Dad says, I'll tell you when you are 16. And then I'll be like, oh, okay. Then I'll explain to him. So
Okay.
we got very close. Yeah. And then up until this year. Okay, last year we spent Christmas in Mpumalanga with our friends. So we visited them.
Okay.
And we all went. And I was like, yo, I still need to beg these kids to say yes, because I can't go to Christmas and leave them alone. And he had no problems. And then we went to Mpumalanga. Then we went to KZN, Ekaya. Then we came back. And this year, he became someone new altogether. He started having friends. Okay, I taught him to drive, I think the previous year or the 2 years back. So he would drive. The school is inside the estate,
Okay.
but it's a little bit, maybe it's about 2 or 3 kilometers from my house.
Okay.
So my husband was spending more time in Cape Town. So if you're a traveler, it made my life easy because he'll just drive here and no brother wake, apagi moto, they go to school, come back, bring the brother back home.
Okay.
Yeah, bon. So then this year, he started having friends, and then I'll come back from work and the guy's not at home. I'll be like, Katie, where are you? Okay, they used to call him Katie. Atama, I'm at Kanye's house. And then I will track the car on GPS, on the tracker. And I'll say, no, you're not at Kanye's house. The car is saying it's in Skumansville. And then he'll be like, Ish, yeah, no, you know what? Sorry, Mamzi. I just accompanied Sean or whoever to this place. So he started becoming a teenager. So he was now a boy that has got friends and a girlfriend. And, yeah. So he was such a sweet child, though. And I think that's the one thing that came through a lot after he had passed. Okay, I know even at home, he was a very respectful child. Even ayenza, like njoba ngisho ukuthi mhlambe ngizobuya esikole emsebenzini akekho, athi no, I visited my friend, and then I'm like, no, you're not there. And then he'll come home and say, love of my life, I'm sorry, you know? And then I'll just smile,
Yeah.
But he was very respectful. Even when we had people at home, he'll come downstairs, maybe if Funa something, and then the first thing he'll go and greet, ends my high fives. Then for the ladies, he will hug. And then if he doesn't see me, he'll be like, where's mom? He developed this strong baritone voice.
Yeah.
Beautiful voice. I always used to say to him, you've got a voice for radio.
Yeah.
So he'd be like, where's mom? And he wanted to see me where I am and like, what are we having for dinner tonight? And I'd be like, okay, I'll cook this and that. Oh, okay. He loved my food. So, but the things that were said about him, besbugana with my sisters, who actually I thought I knew my son. I didn't know my son in that way. I knew he was a respectful child and, but the things that were said about him, his kindness, the way he will make people feel seen. I think because he had that experience, which I was talking about, he wasn't fitting in. So as a cooler, anyuganama grades, then he made sure maybe the new students, maybe in class, they fit in. He made people feel seen. Those were things that were said about him. He was kind. He was sharing. A class in, they were looking forward to his lunchbox because they know Guti Mamzi has prepared. And he will share with everyone in class.
Yeah.
So those were the things that were said. And even other parents will say, your son was very respectful. He always greet. Naseskoleni, hi ma'am, hi sir. So hence the title of the book, Living with an Angel, because my sister was like, actually, we were living with an angel, but we just didn't know. Because Tina, we know this boy who just go and sit in his room, play a PlayStation, only go down, mangabafona something to eat and go back. And then obviously he'll come and greet and then go back. And he'll come with his girlfriend. I remember when he introduced the girlfriend, they were in, I think, Joburg Theatre, because he was doing drama. And he took a short video and he was like, hi, mom, this is my girlfriend. And then the girlfriend was like, hi, mommy. And then, so when he got home, I'm like, oh, so you've got a girlfriend now? Yeah. And it's, oh, okay. And then when it's Valentine, he'd be like, Mama, can we please go to Woolies and buy flowers and chocolate? And I'd be like, you've never bought me flowers. Now you're buying girls. I became jealous as a mother, know? I'm like, so you're buying flowers for girls, but not for me.
Yeah.
And he'd be like, and then my husband would be like, awuyegumntwana.
Yeah.
And I think earlier this year, or maybe a couple of months before the car accident, which we are going to talk about, I guess, my sisters were home and we had other friends. So because I said to him, you know what, if you are chilling with your friends, because I'll call him, like maybe on Saturdays, he'll be like, Mommy, I'm going to class after, what are those things called? Metric, after hours or after whatever weekend classes. So he was like, look, okay, I'm going to school for the class, and then I'll call him, are you done? Yes, but I'm chilling with my friends. We're here in Zanatu. We are at the bed house, sitting in the bed house. And I'll be like, you know what? Come to the house. And then he'll be like, are you okay with that? So I'm like, yeah. And he'll say, but you've got people. I'll say, no, but we're sitting downstairs, so you and your friends are gonna go and sit. Because I felt he is a teenager. Ngizothi mina right ehleli bed house kanti they are now starting to do bad things, you know. So for me as a parent, it was safer ukuthi akeze nabangani bakhe la bahlale la endlini so that bangayenzi izinto as wrong. So and then he got used to ukuthi this bengibabiza nge-big five. So they'll come to the house and then they're saying, Mommy, can we borrow the cooler box? I'm like, what are you gonna do with the cooler box? No, we wanna put our juices and drinks. I'm like, are you drinking? I said, no, Mom. You know, I've never even drank a fizzy drink. I never drank anything fizzy.
Okay.
A pussy juice, amanzi, and oros. You know, I can't even drink anything fizzy. So, yeah. So the girlfriend came with some of Katie's friends who are girls and the boys. And then he came to us, my sister and I were in the kitchen. So he was holding his girlfriend by the hand. And then he said, Mommy number 2, that's how he calls my second sister.
Okay.
Mommy number 2, here's my girlfriend, Honor. And then my sister was like, yo, as I'm a 2K, they love loudly and boldly. Mina nje bengeke ngifike ne-girlfriend or ne-boyfriend yami ekhaya ngithi mom this is my boyfriend because uyazi ukuthi uzothola impama. But I was like no, let me know so that I can ask him questions ukuthi and advise him, you know, because I'll sit with him and advise so that angathola my advice are wrong as doing, you know. And I wanted to know the girlfriend as well so that ngimbona ukuthi umntwana onjani and and I will even ask him how's Honor, and then he'll be like no, I broke up with her. Then the following week, how's Honor? No, we're back together.
Okay.
It's you're hot and cold. I know, don't worry, that's my wife. So I wanted to parent him differently so that I can know and ask him good, have you started doing this, that and that so that I can give proper advice because you know, so we had a very, very strong relationship, especially Magasai teenager.
Yeah. I mean, it's quite profound because as we grow up, speaking as a boy who was raised by a very, old-fashioned dad, who was also just busy. I grew closer to mom, just the way that's happening. Because she was always there.
Yes.
She would deal with the issues,
Yes.
sweep them under the carpet.
Yes.
Dad finds out. So it brings you closer to your mom.
Exactly.
And, it's quite nice to see that you are actively involved and you are navigating his challenges.
Yes.
A friend of mine committed suicide because of his first heartbreak. He couldn't deal with that feeling. And I just wish someone had told him,
these things happen.
Something like this is Oenzaga.
Yes.
So Yamshaya so hard that he couldn't recover.
I'm laughing because I think last year, October, he sent me a message, Mommy, where are you? I said, no, I'm driving back home from work. And I think my husband was home. I need to talk to you and Dad. This child, say me silly. Then I got home and then let's go and talk to Dad. I said, no, can I talk to you first? And then I go and sit with him and then he was so heartbroken. So I think they had a fight with the girlfriend and then somehow girlfriend Tatis Tombe hugging some boy and then yam block her on Instagram and then the friends Zakati screenshot bamtumelela. So he was so heartbroken. And then I was like, these things happen. Then it's okay, fine, let's go and talk to your father. And then we go. And then Masfiga, my husband was in our bedroom. And then Atima tell Dad, no, this is your story, you tell your dad. And then I tell Babak, and then my husband, I was afraid of this day. I knew this day would come.
Yeah.
These things happen, my boy.
Yeah.
I was very afraid and waiting for your first heartbreak.
Yeah.
Exactly like you were saying. And then he told him, no, these things happen. Talk to her, find out. And if it doesn't work out, there's plenty of fishes in the sea, but I'm not saying be irresponsible, uhambe ujola, but try and see ukuthi niyakwazi ukuyikhuluma lento. If ingalungiseki, you're still young,
Yeah.
and this is your first girlfriend.
Yeah.
So this is your first heartbreak.
Yeah.
So uzoba right. And then I said, okay, please talk to my younger sister. And then he was like, no, ma, I don't want the entire family to know about my issues.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, Mina, I'm your mother. My loyalty lies with you. So I'm going to end up hating your girlfriend, right? Because he's hating you and I can see that you are hurt. Kanti my sister,
Yeah.
although I'm mdala, but you understand that, listen to, mina njoba ngisho ukuthi ngimdala.
Yeah, there's a gap
So,
there, yeah.
and then he spoke to my sister and eventually he became right and babuyelana, you know.
Then,
so imagine if he didn't have access to me as a mother to say, I'm heartbroken, you know.
Yeah.
Because we are bangan, but you know what? Siphuza utshwala, spam insango, spam ama-drugs so that you can numb the pain.
Yes.
Or even worse, commit suicide,
Exactly,
like you're
exactly.
saying. So it's very important as parents to have an open door policy with our kids, not just at work and say, no, I've got an open door policy. But ayisafani indlela esikhule ngayo nendlela abantwana bethu abakhula ngayo.
That's
So
true.
especially the boys, even the girls, have that connection and that open door relationship with your kids.
Yeah, and it takes us to be aware. Because a lack of a lack of awareness on the parents' part is where we drop the ball.
Correct.
Because there's very significant milestones when one is growing up. When you look back to say, why didn't I turn out like that guy?
Yes.
I turned out like this. I should have been that guy because I used to hang around with him.
Yes.
And you realize, no, it's my dad, or it's mom always took me to church, or you know, those kinds of things that are small.
Yeah.
So thank you for painting such a vivid picture. You know, the way you explain it, it's like you are going back in time and you are actually in the streamline where you're actually living those moments. And I think that's a gift to be able to visit that place.
Yes.
Now tell us about the actual day now.
Yeah.
On the day of the
Yeah. So what happened was, like I said, on Saturday he had extra classes for accounting. So he'll wake up and come to my room. So he usually didn't knock, and I used to tell him, I don't have privacy. That's mom, yeah, my mom, you know. So he'll just get in. He liked to wear smart, to dress smart, like his father. So he'll come, open the closet for his dad, and then I'm like, no, you can't wear that. Your dad will kill you. Because he used to say, no, Kate, you still need to wear like a young guy, not branded clothes, you know. But he liked his dad's clothes, so he'll open the closet and wear whatever and put dad's perfumes, the watch and the shades.
Yeah.
So that day, he just got in and I lifted my head. I was like, oh, you going for extra classes? And he said, no, I'm going out with Masego. Masego was his female best friend.
Okay.
I'm going out for lunch, for breakfast with Masego. And I said, oh, okay. And I said, don't use the car. I'm going to use it. I'm going to need it. I know it's fine. Masego is picking me up.
Okay.
Sharp. So then I woke up. I remember that Saturday I was very swamped with work. So I sat and I was working. I was on my laptop working in the lounge, or there's an office, a bar. And then he comes, opens the door, says, are you busy? I'm like, yeah, I'm very busy. And then he says, okay, where's my sister? And I said, I don't know, check her room. Why? And then he said, no, I need someone to drop me at the gate. Masego is waiting for me at the gate. Like, okay, cool. Ask Lua to take you, which is my firstborn.
Okay.
So, and then as he was going out the door, I'm like, hey, come here. Let me see how you dressed. And then he came and stood at the balcony and he was like, he liked doing that pose.
Yeah.
Then I said, oh, wow, you're looking nice. And then he left. And then my daughter dropped him outside the gate. Okay, sharp. I continued working. And I think I was like, no, I need to go and buy groceries. I went to Macro in Riverside, came back, and I continued to work. And all the time I'm not calling him because I'm like, let me give him time, you know? And then next thing, I'm getting a call from one of the teachers at school. I'm like, yo, what has Katie done now? I'm like, okay, maybe they went and chilled at school and they know after hours or on Saturdays, no one should be at school. I'm like, yo. Then I answer. And then teacher Andrea says, Katie's mom, Alora is looking for your number. Alora is Katie's girlfriend.
Okay.
Apparently, Maseko and Katie were involved in an accident. I'm like, but Alora should have my number. Okay, give it to her. I'm thinking, okay, maybe they bumped someone's car or they scratched the car or whatever because they are around Hartis, you know? And then Alora called me, Mama, please don't panic. I'm trying to call Katie and Maseko. Both of them are not answering. Their phone goes on voicemail and my brother is at the scene. Then I'm like, what scene? And she said, no, my brother is at the scene. Niti where? At somewhere in Pretoria. Then I was like, I screamed. Because now I'm thinking, no, this is serious. Masakulo nanga masin and, you know. And then I was like, please drop the phone and tell your brother to call me now. And that time I'm screaming. And I ran down the stairs. So my nanny heard me screaming and thought maybe I fell because last day I broke my leg.
Okay.
So my nanny calls my daughter because my daughter was at my friend's house, which is just maybe 5 or 6 houses away from mine. So for no I come back, usisi akekho right, we are screaming angazi ukuthi kuyenzakalani. Then ngivula igarage ngene emotweni, I don't even know where I'm going, but I'm gonna go to Pretoria. So as I'm driving out, someone calls me. I answer. Hi, it's a lady. Is this Katie's mom? And I'm crying. Ngithi, yes. Are you crying? I'm not gonna tell someone I don't know. No, I'm not. I've got the flu. Oh, okay. I'm so and so's mom. I was coming from church from Pretoria, and between the two toll gates, the N4 to Artis, I passed an accident, and I think I saw your son. They had taken him out of the car and put him on the grass. So I don't know. She was taking a video. I think she's one of those people that take videos. And then so I think she realized, Guti, this is my son. I think she knows him. And then asendele umntanakhe because apparently umntanakhe they were in the same class as KT. Abuza ukuthi, is this KT? And then umntanathi, yeah, that's KT. Then I think she got my number on the school groups or whatever. Then she's like, so yeah, it's okay, where? And then she directed me. I don't know, I'm turning back because now I know what is KT. So I'm turning back to the scene. It's okay, I'm on my way. So while driving, ngihlangana nomntana my daughter. Ngithi ngene emotweni, you're wasting time. So umntanami had called Utembeni, my friend, good Mama, please wait outside because apparently she's crying and we don't know what's happening. And my daughter, the car was moving, but my hands bezisekhanda. Ngiyakhala. So then I stopped by Tembeni's house, and then Tembeni athi, Phuma friend, I'm gonna drive. Angene, I drive, and then Tembeni's husband and the other friend of my husband as well, they were driving in another car. So I'm like, Tembeni, hamba. And Kosam, she was driving, I think, almost 250 or whatever. I remember when we got to Utoll Gate. So this lady, you're slow. Ukubal usnigishin, ngithi sesivula ibhom gate, just live there. I'm crying. And I'm like, guys, go. And ngapha, the phones are ringing non-stop. And this lady, obengfonele, ukusini, uthi, no, where are you? Ngithi, sengidlulile ku-toll gate. Athi, okay, so mawuqeda ukudlula uzobona kunamaphoyisa nama-ambulance. Bathi bazoyisa abantwana eKalafong. Ngithi mina, no, don't take my son to Kalafong. Take him to the nearest private hospital, une-medical aid. And then they're like, I'm a paramedics, bafuna isithombe se-medical aid. Then my daughter was doing that. Wonke umuntu nje una something, taking pictures and sending. And then we got to the scene. My heart was here when I saw the ambulances and people and whatever. I don't know how I got into the car. I think I just opened the door where angagami nokumutembeni. And I ran. I forgot I've got a broken leg. I ran. I ran. So at that time, there were 2 ambulances now. I ran. I was like, my son, umtanam. Then I went and looked. The other ambulance was opened. The other one, the doors were closed. So I go to the opened one. I saw it's Masejo. And I saw blood here. I'm like, no, where's the boy? The boy's inside the closed ambulance. I'm like, no, ambulance. And then I'm a GMPD or TMPD, they're like, they held me, restricted me. But no, sis, you're delaying. No, the ambulance is here, just open the door. And then they were like, no. Then I obliged. And then so ambulance, hamba. Then they were like, no, we're taking him to Louis Pasteur Hospital. And then Tembeni's husband and Umzi, they're looking at the car. I'm like, Umzi, go check my phones and whatever. Tembeni, let's drive to hospital. They'll find us esbedlela. And then I looked at the car. I'm like, oh my God. And Tembeni's husband is crying. Umzi, who's also my husband's friend, he's crying. He kept on saying, what am I going to say to Umshin? My husband's nickname is Umshin. And then Umzi athi nangu baba othi ubasizile ukubakhipha emotweni. So ngithi mina umntanami ube kanjani? The boy athi bazoba right abantwana bebekhuluma, they're gonna be okay. Uboy, he was just bleeding. Ngibone ukuthi ulimele la ebusweni. And then I was like, okay. Then ngene emotweni sihambe. So mase ambulance, this lady who called me earlier kept on calling, where are you? I'm like, GPS, we were 5 minutes away. Then we got to hospital. Tembeni Park where the ambulances are parking. Mina ngehla, and then you go and park. Gijimele emergency. So mangehla, this lady comes. I didn't know it's her, but we are gijima. Umbamba ngengalo. Siya gijima. Ngene emergency. I'm like, umashini my boy. Kuthiwa no, Ula, but you can't enter. The doctors are busy with him. I want to see my boy. I want to see my son. Kuthiwa no, sis, you can't. The doctors will tell you. Then I stood and I prayed. I was crying and then I'm praying. And I'm seeing resuscitation room. I'm like, yeah, it's bad. Then I'm like, I don't have a choice. I need to call my husband. He was in Cape Town. And Magase Plantini, he phoned again. He's a nuclear engineer. So I found him on Teams. And then we are pendula ngithi Ketelo has been in an accident. Angakamboni, but I'm here. I'll update you. And then nginikeze uMabaso Tembeni's husband phone ukuthi akhulume naye. Athi I know asakambona umfana, but we all here. Then I called my other husband's friends around and my sister, and so sekugcwele esibhedlela. After an hour, okay, before that, udokotela phume. Then ngigijima emva kwakhe ngithi, doctor, how's my boy? Then I know right now we're doing the best that we can do. Ngithi I need to see him. Athi uzombona, but we're still busy. Then I phoned this other doctor friend of mine. I'm like, ngisesibhedlela and my son is in an accident and abafuna ukungitshela ukuthi kuyenzakalani. Mhlambe wena because you're a doctor bazokutshela. And this doctor athi no ma, it's not like angifuna ukukutshela. Ngithi mina please talk to this doctor. Akhulume naye ke ngiyamuzwa usho lama terms abo kodwa kunye ngiyacosha kancane. Then Dr. Jed at no precious Shisumoya. The doctor sounds like he knows what he's doing. Magasekretile uzokubiza umbone, but let them do what they need to do. It's sharp. And I think after an hour, 30 minutes, then udokotela no umama no baba umntwana bakangena. So ngingene with Tembeni's husband. And my son ikhanda lakhe lingaka. And you could see ukuthi he was bleeding through the nose because unegazi lomile bamfake that oxygen tube. But akanangozi la unomkhuzuko nje you know and some blood. I didn't know whether ukhathekile kodwa ngayibona ukuthi the head belikhulu especially on the right side. And then I'm like, yo, and then on the body wayifake i-tracksuit emhlophe unegazi but li-dry, so ngiyabona ukuthi okay kushuthi alikho igazi li-fresh, shuthi akalimele la emzimbeni. And then udokotela athi okay sizomisa kwi-MRI scan ise 7th floor, but you guys can come with us. But thina sohamba ngenye lift and then nizohamba. It's okay sharp. So we sibalandele, and I think while they were preparing i-MRI room, so make phuma la umntanami is twitching, yabona uya twitch izandla namadolo uyawafinqa. I'm like, oh okay kushuthi kudlala maybe senior accident babo. Then we all go to the 7th floor, and then my friends and my sisters sat around the bed and we prayed. And as we were praying wavuka like ngathi no Khethelo uzolimala, I don't know how much you injured, relaxa, but I'm here. And then he just turned himself, thatha isandla walala so. Then bayenza MRI, after MRI wathiwa sibuyele back emergency kuvulwe another file for ICU. Okay, then when I say ICU, we waited outside, then bathi basamcleaner, bangibiza ke sebeqedile ukuthi no I can come see him. Then ngiyangena ngiyabona okay use-clean nyana, then ngiyabona yeah the head is big. And I was like, so what are the results of his scan? Then but no, we can't tell you. The doctor, the specialist will tell you. Ngithi where's the specialist? But no, akekho la esibhedlela, but simfonela wena oseprescribile ukuthi what must we give him. Ngithi angihambi until a specialist is fika. Then one of my husband's friend uBongani athi no mama hamba uphumula. Udokotela efika uzofona ashare the number yakhe ukuthi bafone. Then ngithi okay, then we went home. I went home. I couldn't sleep. I found the hospital ngabo 3. Ngithi njani umntwana bathi no uvukile waba restless bamsedata again ulehla. Ngithi okay. Think ngo5 ngigeze fake i-tracksuit because kwakubanda, it was winter. Ngihlale, I'm waiting for so I was calling my husband because so ubukhe the first flight from Cape Town to Joburg, and he's got to drive asuke a hotel airport. And so I'm calling him ukuthi angazeli endleleni, and obviously sometimes uyobona ukuthi abantu bayangifihlela, you know. So I was on the phone with him ukuthi okay where are you now? Asofekile pet okay sengicheckile in, you know. So while slowly around 8 ngithole call, hi Mrs. Mashinini, please come to the hospital, your son's condition has changed. Ngithi mina okay. Then I phoned my husband, where are you now? I don't know, the shuttle is here at the gate. No, my back drop lapho will find you. Then Umzi drives the car, and then my brother-in-law alandele ngenye moto with my sisters, and then we got my husband egate-ini, siya driver siyasibhedlela. Masendleleni they keep on calling my husband now. Mara phone connected with Bluetooth. So maphendule, Mr. Mashinini, how far are you? I know I'm 15 minutes away. I'm coming. They kept on calling. They kept on calling my husband. Kandi, they have been calling him from Esuga AOR Tambo. So my husband didn't know ukuthi umntana use Pretoria. Ngoba bekazothi uthi wayezothi sihlangane khona. You know, so yena uthi let me just go home and fetch my wife.
Okay.
You know? So sihambe masifika esibhedlela siyehle sobayi2, and then my husband athi, why are you wearing track pants? Why ungafaka dress? Ngithi mina why ngizofaka track pants kanti umntana wami seshonile yini? Because enekuyabanda so ang-ignore. Then we got there. So masingena see passing through where he was, his ward. Come get the nurse at the doctors kuvala ama-curtain. The doctors are busy with him. Bazos basihlalise in this other room, and then the nurse brings water and tissue. I'm like, water and tissues. And then every 10 minutes, the nurse will come and say, no, they're still busy with him. And then I remember ngahamba ngithi, let me go to the bathroom. Then mangiyabuya, there's a small space, curtain alihlangene ngiyabuka. There's a lot of doctors surrounding my son. I'm thinking, are they operating him? But kanjani, because umuntu is with theater, and also I haven't given consent. He's 17. Okay, ngibuyele, ngihlale. Then I think after 1 hour, 30 minutes, the doctor comes, the specialist. And then I figure, ahlale esitulweni. Family, I need you to be strong for this. Your son is very critical. And can you tell me how the accident happened? Then him explain that there was a tire burst and then the car veered off the road and I think Masako controlled it back and then it toppled 5 times. So it was not rolling on the side. It was rolling front to back 5 times and it landed on its roof. So your son suffered severe brain injuries. And he's very critical and everything we're giving him is at maximum. So I don't have any room to maneuver. And also he's now on life support. He can't breathe on his own. Okay. But I see Lord Dr. Mehlon Guti has written off my son. It's okay. Look, don't give up on my son. Do everything that is medically possible and humanly possible. And God will do the rest. I said, okay. Then my husband asked, okay, when are you going to do a second scan to see? Because the brain is swelling and unama blood clots and whatever. So they were giving him something to control the swelling. I said, no, we're going to do it on Monday. So Monday, we go to hospital. They do the scan. Abuye ne scan sa Saturday, nesa Monday. I said, okay. Famous room again. This is the scan here Saturday. This is the scan here today. The injuries are getting worse. So, and also what I was giving him to control the swelling is interfering with his sodium levels and also affect my kidneys. So I'm going to take him off that medication. So give him something else. The side effects are going to be the same. And then with him it's just 1 hour at a time. Doctor, you're going to do everything. Let God do the rest. And I've never trusted God like I did when my son was in ICU. I would go to the wards around him and pray. And pray. I believed with uNkulunkulu the miracles la khuluma ngawe eBhayibhelini uzoyenza la kumntanami and umntanami akavuka la it will be a testimony with how powerful and gracious God is. I had that belief. And the friends always came. We were praying. The teachers would visit and pray. They even had a prayer at school. The friends will come and visit his friends, but just the big 5 because I wanted to control. And I'll tell them with no pictures because he was in life support and, but as days goes by, he kind of like a labuya and then he looked like my son.
Okay.
And so we're camping at the hospital every day. Then I said to the doctor, I need a second opinion. I'm going to get another specialist, but not from this hospital. Not because I'm doubting what you're doing, but I need a second opinion. 2 minds are greater than one. And then the doctor said, no, it's fine. I'm happy with that. Then I got this second neuro specialist. So this other day I go to hospital. And there's so many wires coming out. Then you see, what is this? But no, the other doctor came and ordered we must do EEG, which is the brain activity test. And say, oh, okay, sharp. Then the next day, simthole udokotela, see a famous room. I called it famous room because that's where they were telling me bad news. Then by 2. Then Lo explained. Lo Munyo is Fazan. He was saying the same things that Lo Omunye was saying, but I think because Mama, he'll put it in an empathetic way. This one was just raw and tell you, although Anga Shokoto Yabona, okay, he's saying, give up, So the ladies said, Mtana ikona brain activity, but it's very low for a person his age. I think it was 1. It's supposed to be 1 to 15. So for a person his age, it's supposed to be 8. So so it's very low, and also he's having seizures. And ugu deep coma. Then I asked, is it induced? But no, he just slipped into a deep coma. And then that lady, also his heart is failing to pump. The medication that they gave him when they were resuscitating him affected his heart. When was my son resuscitated? On Sunday. Kusho the lady one. Then I'm like, I didn't know. So Kushuguti, the time we were called, my son's heart stopped. He actually died.
Exactly.
And then they resuscitated him. But the doctor didn't tell me. Then, so the next day, I meet the doctor. We go to the famous room. And I'm like, why didn't you tell me, Guti, tell us, Guti, our son was being resuscitated? I don't know, maybe, I think I did say, but maybe I didn't use the word resuscitate. Then Nimfilele saw good shame. He was giving us bad news. Maybe he felt good, it's enough what he is telling us. It's okay, I understand, but please going forward, tell me everything that is going on with my son. So that's okay. Then this lady who called me accident lower 30 video. Acela ukuthi ucela ukuzobona umntwana amkhulekele. Ngithi no sizohlangana esibhedlela. Then sihlangana esibhedlela. Afterwards ngimbuza ngithi okay kwenzakala kanjani ukuthi ufike esibhedlela before me? Athi no, I was in the ambulance. The time bethi bamthatha umntwana I felt ukuthi akukho right ukuthi uKT ahamba ayi1 because bokungakafiki. Ngithi mina but I was there screaming. Athi I heard you screaming. But why didn't you tell the paramedics? Which actually I'm not the mother. The mother is the lady who's screaming outside. Because I thought they restricted me because they thought I'm not the mother because the mother is already inside. But I was like, ish, okay. Then I was like, hey, but thank you for accompanying my son. Then I was like, okay, what was my son saying in the ambulance? Because they said the kids were talking. And then he kept on calling you. He kept on saying, Ma, Mommy, Mamzi. Because that's how he'll call me when I'm ignoring him.
Okay.
You know, he'll say, Ma, Mamzi, Mommy. And then he said something that I'm scared to tell you. Ngithi, what could be worse than what I know about my son right now? And then he took off his oxygen mask and he smiled and said, Mommy, I see Jesus. Jesus is here to fetch me. Ngithi mina, oh, okay. Thank you for being there. Because my son, when I got there, he wasn't talking. So, long story forward, second week, they did another activity test. And then they're like, no, we want to see you tomorrow at 11. We are camping at the hospital anyway. So 11 o'clock, ngithi ku-husband wami, kusho ukuthi kuhamba kahle, mhlambe i-brain activity yanyu because if beku-serious bebezositshela namhlanje. So we go to the hospital. And famous room again. Then they come. Both doctors, I think, yes. And Lo Weslisa ati, family, do you have a psychologist? Ngithi yes. We had already started having a psychologist coming to the house and talking to us. Ngithi yes. Ati, oh, that's great news. Ati, your son is brain dead. Kube ngathi angimuzwa ukuthi uthini. Ngithi so what? Just like that. Ngithi so what? That your son is brain dead. Ngithi I said so what? Ati I mean your son is clinically dead. He's not coming back. Ngithi so what are the options? My husband is just sitting there quiet, holding my hand. Ngithi, what are the options? What needs to happen? Ati Lois Fazane, you have 3 options. You donate his organs, you keep him on the ventilator, or you switch off the ventilator. Or life support. Ngithi, you are not gonna touch my son. You're not gonna harvest his organs. Leave him alone. And you're not gonna switch off that machine. Leave my child alone. God will decide when it's time to take him. And then, but okay, we'll keep him on the machine. Then Lois was okay, the other thing that we must tell you is because the brain is dead, it can't control anything. Your son will start decomposing.
Oh my God.
That cut me like a sharp sword cutting my heart. I don't care. Keep my son. God will decide. Then I went to my son. Like I did everything that I would do. I'll pray. I'll crack jokes. I'll play music. I'll play his TikTok videos. The things that I'll bring to the hospital, the things that he loved. Like I'll massage him, like massage his body, massage his legs, kiss him, like embrace him. To me, my son is breathing. My son is alive. But I know, but I'm just in denial, you know. And I kept on doing what I do. Like I'll bring his controller, put it in his hand. I'll bring the things that like hoodies that he loved. I'll put it on top of him and then I'll take it when I go. So, and then we said on Thursday, we need a meeting with the doctors. We want evidence, tests, everything that led them to conclude with his brain dead. And they're like, no, it's fine. And then they gave us all of that. And we're like, okay, sharp. Then I'm like, let's do another brain activity test. And my husband was like, you're traumatizing yourself. Let's leave it. So Sunday, I went to hospital. As usual, every day we're going to hospital. I was with my daughter. Then I look at my son's hand. I took my son's hand. He had beautiful hands like his father. And I looked at his hands. I'm like, you're no longer in this body, Katie. I sang, it is well with my soul. And I'll cry and tears will fall on my son. And I'll take his hands and wipe my tears. And then my aunt called me and I was singing, Hlalung ifundisa ukuthi mayenzeke intando yakho. And I will tell him, my son, you're no longer in this body. I release you. You've suffered enough. And I will pray and say, God, take him. It's okay, it's enough now. And what led me to see and also conclude that my son is no longer there, because his hands were, I loved, both my sons, they've got similar hands. They look like they're dead. But those hands, I'm like, no, this is not my son. And Mangi, so I'll kiss him on the forehead, on the cheek, although he had a neck brace, because he also, these bones that connects the head and the spine were also broken.
Okay.
So I'll kiss him on the cheek and kiss him on the mouth, and I'll laugh and say, when you wake up, you'll be like, Mom, that was gross. Why would you kiss me in the mouth? I'm old. Because he used to say that and kiss me on the cheek and say, yeah, I'm an adult now. I can kiss you on the mouth. So when I kiss him in the mouth, I smelled this odor, you know? And I called the nurse. I'm like, do you brush his teeth? And then they're like, yes, 3 times when you bath him. But when you get close to the mouth, there's this odor that's coming out. At here, we've started noticing that it's coming from inside. And I was like, okay, my son is decomposing.
Just as the daughter had mentioned.
So I called my husband because I think he had left, because I stayed in hospital the whole day that day. Actually, I slept in hospital that Sunday. I called my husband and I said, you need to come. He came and I'm like, our son is decomposing. We need to make a decision. And my husband was like, what decision are you going to make? And I said, let's talk to the doctor and ask them to reduce the medication that was helping his heart to pump and that was also boosting his blood pressure. Let's ask them to start reducing it maybe by 5%, 10%, you know, but don't switch the ventilator and let the natural process happen. And the doctor said, no, that's fine. So they started reducing. And I was sitting there, my sisters were there, my daughter was there. And we were still talking, embracing him, crying, joking, you know. And later, my husband came because he came, and then they came. Then the nurse came and said, "Okay, the medication is finished. We're not replacing it now,
Okay.
as your request." And I said, "Okay." And then I said, "What's going to be the process?" And they said, "He's going to have 1 to 4. He has 1 to 4 hours, depending how strong he is. So his blood pressure will start dropping, and then ultimately his heart rate will start dropping, and then his heart will stop." So I was like, "Okay, fine." And then I said, "I'm not going. I'm sleeping here in hospital." The nurses said, "No, it's okay," because the curtains were closed anyway. So my husband left, and my sisters were like, "Okay, we are also not going, so we're going to be with you."
Okay.
So my sisters and my daughter were there, and we were there all night. The blood pressure, my son's blood pressure will go down, but the heart rate still maintained. And then when I massage him, it will come up. So the nurse that was helping him that night shift, she took care of us as well, because he will massage me, bring me another chair to elevate my food, you know. And when he was going in the morning, he said, "Guys, I don't think I'll find you in the afternoon, so let me pray for you." She prayed. And then she said, "Can I say goodbye to my son?" And I said, "Okay." Then she put her hand on my son's forehead and said, "Katie, it was nice taking care of you, my son. May your soul rest in peace." Again, I'm sitting there, I'm saying, what is this person saying? Because my son is alive. And then she left. Then my husband came. The blood pressure just dropped. My sisters left to go and change. And the nurse, I said, "I'm not going." So the nurse said, "No, they can bring you toiletries and clothes to change. We'll give you the bathroom facilities." And my brother-in-law and Junior was there. My brother-in-law got so scared. He went out and called my sisters and said, "Come back now." Because we were told that the 4 hours had passed, right? And now with the blood pressure is down, so we're expecting that the heart rate will just drop. And my husband was like, "I'm going." He left. And then Junior and my brother-in-law, they had to go. Then I sent my brother-in-law the message and I said, "Please be patient with him. I think he doesn't know how to deal with this." Because for him, 15 minutes was enough. In the ward. So I said again, it came up. So we sat there until, for now it's Monday. Remember, this thing was finished on Sunday. And that Sunday, when they were telling us that my husband sat down and started a song, I've forgotten the song, but I'll remember. So we sang that song. And I think that was his way of saying goodbye. And around 4 now on Monday, my son is still, the heart rate is still okay. And the doctors are like, "Okay, was your son a rugby player? His heart is so strong." I'm like, actually he hated sports. He was a PlayStation player. And then my sister said, "Nana, let's go home, because maybe Katie doesn't want to go with you here." Took them a lot of convincing. Then I was like, "Okay, fine, let's go." And I said, "Katie, I'm going home, but don't go until I come back. When you take your last breath, I need to be there, just like I was there when you took your first breath." So I went home. And I got home, they were like, "Okay, we're going to rest for maybe 2 hours and go back." Just got home, I hugged my son, Kanyezi. Actually, when I got into the house, I thought I'm seeing Katie. They look alike. And I hugged him. I went to my room and took a bigger jacket. And I'm like, "I'm going back to hospital." They're like, "No, let's rest." And I said, "Whoever wants me, you'll find me in hospital." And my sister was like, "Okay, fine, we're all going." So we all go. So when we got there, okay, I saw that, okay, the heart rate is starting to drop. And we're still there praying and then around 8:30, the heart rate, okay, the blood pressure was done. The heart rate kept on now dropping. And then I phoned my husband, I said, "The heart rate is dropping. Do you want to come now, or must I call you when it's done?" Meaning when he has passed. And then my husband was like, "I don't know. Ask the nurses and the doctors." Then I asked the nurse, the same nurse who left us in the morning. He found us again. He was like, "Yo, guys, your son is a special one." Then I'm like, okay, when do you think we must call my husband? At you, with your son, you'll never know. His vitals will go down. The next thing they're up. So I don't know, maybe when the heart rate gets to 50. And 10 to 11, I did not even ask the nurse. I phoned my friend Tembeni and I said, go to my house and pick up my husband and my brother-in-law. Now, don't even change the pajamas, go like that and go now. Because I could see, okay, it's dropping. It will say 50, 55, or come back to 60 and drop again and 40 and, it was doing that spike. Then around 11:15, I was on the side of the life support. I asked my sister to come on the other side. Because, it was going down now. And the machines were beeping. So I went to the other side. I hugged him like this, his head. Because obviously he couldn't move. So I put my hand around his head like this. So take the mic as his head. And then my head was on his chest. And then I was holding his hand. I was looking at the monitor. My sisters were crying. The nurse was crying. Just looked at the monitor. Then it was counting 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5. And I was praying. Opened my eyes. I was praying. I was praying, asking God to take care of my son until I come to heaven and continue my duty of being his mom. And 23:32, 0, flatlined. And I think my husband, they were just maybe in a parking lot, because a couple of minutes they came. And I also phoned this other friend of my husband, because Tembeni's husband was not around. He was in Rustenburg for work. So I phoned Untla, please wake up and come to hospital now. Because I'm thinking I'm surrounded by my sisters. My husband and my brother-in-law, they are feeling the same pain. Who's going to be there for them? So I phoned Untla to come. And they came, they saw. And my husband just went and spoke to our son, and then went to sit in the famous room. So I sat there and I said to the nurse, what's next? And then I need to call the doctor to declare him dead and switch off the ventilator, because he was still looking like he's breathing because of the ventilator.
Okay.
And the doctor came, I think it was 10 to 12. And then the nurse called. Okay, the doctor asked us to leave because me and my sisters were there. And then the nurse called us and said, no, the doctor is done. They had explained that they're going to shorten the tube, but they're not going to remove it. The 3 ports they're not going to remove it, because he needs to be taken by forensic people because it's unnatural death for an autopsy. So I went back to when the nurse said, no, you can come. So I went back to the ward. And when I got there, I got so scared. Not scared, but because they had, shortened the tubes. But now my son was lying there straight like a dead person. Okay, yes, he was dead. Gandhi, the time like his feet were apart, But now he was, then I'm like, gosh, my son is gone. Then I opened, and they had covered him up to here. So I opened the sheets, and I saw that they're no longer, because they used to bath him and put the gown over him and then put the sheet or the blanket. So when there was no gown, then I was still talking to him, touching him, massaging him, kissing his toes, talking to him, singing, praying, I think for a good 5 hours. My son was so hot because the brain couldn't regulate the anything in his body. So that Sunday when I was in hospital, it was very cold. So I would put my hand under his gown and hug him like this, put my head next to him so that I can get his warmth. So he started being warm until he was cold as ice. I think I stayed with him for 5 hours because the police had to come it was just a lot. And then eventually the forensic people came and they asked me to leave the room. And then I left, but I stood outside and I looked at them putting my son in a body bag. And then they covered him. And they came out and said, okay, we're going to push him. And I'm so grateful that they didn't come with that thing that they usually come with that looks like a coffin.
The white case.
Yeah. So for me, that process was dignified, at least, because yes, I saw them putting him in a body bag, but they covered him. And they were like, don't follow us so that we don't scare other patients. So we're going to meet on the 3rd floor if you want to come with us to the mortuary. So we were all standing there and I said, let me say a prayer. Then I said, Our Father. And then I was like, okay, Sharp, you can take him. They pushed him out. And I was looking. And I think every nurse was crying. No one's eyes were dry. The nurses, and they kept on coming to me, hugging me, and then they took him. And then my husband was like, no, we don't have to go to the mortuary. Let's just go home. And then we left. Only when I got into the car, I started shaking, feeling cold from the bone. I was shaking, literally shaking. And the funny thing, yes, Satane will test you, because every time we go to hospital, every day, we must pass where the accident happened.
Eish.
So that day, I just took the throw I had, I put it over my head so that I don't see that spot. And I just went home. And I think when I was getting off the car, I almost fell. My husband picked me up. I slept. Think around 6, because I woke up and I was like, okay, my sisters needs to help me and my friends to move things out, because we're Zulus, so we observe the Zulu culture, yokuhlala kumatras and all of that. And I was worried, how am I going to tell Unkanyi's, my last born? Remember I said for the longest time they were besties. So my husband said, go wake Nkanyezi so that I can tell him before I go to the mortuary. He said, but why don't we tell him when you come back, because he's still sleeping? He's going to see you guys moving things and you sitting on the mattress. He's going to ask questions. So let's rather tell him. Then I woke him. He came to our room and he said, and then my husband said, do you remember what I said about Katie? And he said, yes, Dad. And Ati, what did I say? Ati, you said Katie is very injured. The doctors are doing everything that they can, but there is a possibility that Katie might not come home. And then Dad said, yeah, Katie is in heaven now. And then my son cried. He's 11. And then it was that thing of preparing for the funeral. They couldn't do the autopsy on Tuesday because they said they're doing 15 people a day. They did it on Wednesday. And I'm like, I need to bury my son on Saturday because don't want him to stay for long, my cousin. So fortunately, it was done, the autopsy, on Wednesday. And then we went ahead with the preparations for the funeral. At school, they supported me a lot. From the principal to the cleaner. They came to the house and they were like, okay, they want to have a memorial service for Katie. And I was like, no, it's fine. So I went to the memorial service on Thursday. My husband said, no, I'm not going. I went, and it was such a beautiful memorial service. And that's when a lot of kids were saying things about Katie. And they had put up this table with his portrait and 2 candles and a book for students and parents to write messages. And then after the memorial service, I needed to go and choose my son's casket. So I went with my sister to the funeral parlor because my husband went on Wednesday because they had to do death certificate and go to the offices and all those things. And then the lady said, okay, come choose. And he said, my wife will do that. So I went. And also I had to take the clothes so that they can dress him. Because the next day I said, my son is going to sleep at home. So I went there. We were doing all the paperwork and stuff. And then I had to go to the, I call it what? The room of sorrow to choose the casket. And the last thing I bought for my son was not a Nintendo Switch or a PlayStation or clothes or a suit for his matric dance or graduation or wedding. It was a casket. And that's the scar I will live with forever. So, on Friday he came. People supported us. My house was always full. Our friends from Devon, everywhere, they were there every day. Then he came back home. Obviously, we had to observe the ritual. And then they had to do it at the mortuary, not at home, because we're in an estate. So they did that. And I kept on asking my sister, where are you guys? Because they had to first go to Pretoria to the hospital, Gumlanda ngehlahla, and go to the mortuary. So they were in the mortuary, I think it was somewhere here in Joburg. So they were stuck in traffic. But I kept asking, and last time I spoke to my sister, she said, we are passing Henop, so I knew they were closer. And I kept on asking, where are you? And then she was no longer communicating with me. She was communicating with my younger sister. And my heart was sitting here. Then I didn't see the hairs. I just saw Katie's friends. They were sitting upstairs, going down, and other school kids going down. Outside, I saw the abazalwana besendlini. They went out. And ngalunguza, because matras bonga sewindini, I just saw their friends doing the guard of honor. And then I'm sitting there, I'm shaking. And these funeral parlor people, pallbearers, I think they are called, they came, opened the door, the doors were both opened, and then they put the thing that they opened it. And then they brought the coffin. Just when, it was not even a quarter of the coffin. When I saw that small piece, pain doesn't kill. Buhlungu abulali. Ngoba kuba buyabulala that day I was gonna die. I felt labor pains that I felt 17 years ago. And my son, they had to put him there. And then we had a church service and the friends were around. And then my sister said, we need to, when people are gone, we need to look at him because he was still bleeding. So we need to check if he's okay. But they gave us things to clean him with. And I was like, okay, fine. And then when most people were gone, then I asked my husband to open the casket. So when my husband came before that, when my husband came, a petit hlahla, and he had his hand, one hand at the back and one hand, a petit hlahla, and he was wearing shades and looking up. My heart tore for my son, but also for my husband. I was like, and remember, this was his first son. And I looked at him, but there was nothing I could do. I didn't know whether I must go and hug him or what. And then the pastor said, no, you can put the ihlahla and, and then the pastor asked if we're done with the rituals or if there's something we need to do. And we're like, no, we're done. And then he came to me, my husband, and he hugged me. And then he went outside. So later, then I asked him to open the casket so that we can check. And he opened it and he broke down. It was the first time I saw him breaking down literally. And I looked at my son. I said to my sister, no, we're not going to touch him because, yes, you could see that there was blood, but it was dry.
Okay.
So I think when they were doing the autopsy, they cut his skull. So that's why he was bleeding. And I was very mad because I said to the guys when I was taking his clothes and choosing the coffin, I said, dress him properly in a suit, and please make sure that his eyes, mouth is closed properly, and his cut, brush him on the sides, and he had this cut. My husband calls it a mahlipi, you know. So take the towel and do the red thing. So make sure he looks properly. But then obviously because he was cut, they tried to close, you know, so you couldn't see the hair. But I could see that, okay, the stitches here. Then I was like, no, let's leave him. And then we're like, okay, whoever wants to view from our family can come. Then my son, the 11-year-old, came and looked at his brother. And even when the casket came to the house, my friend was holding him because everybody was scared. But he held his sister, and then my sister's daughter, Sisanda, now she was raised by me. So the 11-year-old held a 24-year-old and the 19 years old. You know, he was that comforter. And then he also came to me and hugged me. No, not a tear. And then he then said, Ma, is that Katie? It's yes. I don't know, that doesn't look like Katie. Why? Achi, since when is Katie pouting? That guy looks like... And then I laughed. I'm like, you know, your brother liked food. So for 2 weeks, he wasn't eating anything. So obviously he's lost weight. And he had that thing. You saw that thing because it was pressing the neck brace. So, and then I said, I think he had a packet of chips, my son. And I said, you know, the other thing, what makes you and makes me is the soul that is inside us. When that soul leaves the body just become a useless thing. I said, you see, those chips, they're full. But when you finish eating them, that packet, it's useless. So ngathi that's the same thing. Katie's soul has left that body. It's in heaven now. What is in there is what used to carry. It's a container what used to carry Katie. And I think me saying that to my son, I was actually saying it to myself without me knowing. Because people were expecting me to break down, especially when the casket was being lowered. So my son had a beautiful funeral befitting for the prince that he was. And a lot of people came. My colleagues, dad's colleagues, our friends, the teachers, the school, because we had the service at the school. And the tent, the marquee. And then, I had to sit in the hairs. In the morning, I had to open the casket and put the, begi tansi, begi impahla like tikandlela. And then I put that, and then some clothes that he was wearing in the accident, and I massaged his legs again. And then I closed the casket. And then we had the service. We went to the cemetery. And when I turned back, I would see his casket. I'm like, okay, this is... Now it was registering because I think I was on autopilot the whole time. And when I was sitting there at the cemetery and when his casket was lowered, my friends came to surround me. My husband and Kanyezi, they held my hands so tight. And they were expecting me to burst out because I would cry from the core of my belly. And that's what happened on Friday. So when that casket was lowered, I just looked at it with so much sadness. And I remembered what I told Kanyezi the previous night. That body that is going to that ground needs to go back there. My son is not in that casket what is going down there is what used to carry my son. Hence, I was able to, on Sunday, to see that you are no longer in this body, my son. So just go, because you're not here. And they say a mother knows. So then we had the funeral and, the after funeral things, and then people start leaving. And then that's when reality starts sinking in.
Yeah.
That this person is not here. The people are no longer coming to the house like they used to. It's just me, my husband, and my kids.
Yeah.
I was just a ghost, a shadow of myself.
Ish. Maybe to cut you a little bit. Thank you for narrating the story and taking us through the motions. You have done such justice. I had prepared a lot of paper towels, but I see that I don't need them at all. I love how you've transitioned us to here. I've got so many questions to ask you. The only challenge is our time. But what I want us to do, if you can permit me, and if the viewers at home can permit me, we've started doing this part 1, part 2 thing. And I feel like what you have actually given us now does justice in terms of bringing us to full understanding in terms of what actually happened. How did it affect you? How was your response? And what was happening in your mind, because you narrate the story so clearly. It's clear that you had to let the information out in one way or the other.
Yeah.
And these questions that I've got, for example, you're not going to answer them now. I'd love for us to pick it up and do part 2, because there's a very deep learning that we're still yet to uncover here. And there's a lot of depth that we're going to.
Correct.
And on the next part, I see you've got the book. Let me just show our viewers.
This is my handsome son.
Thank you so much. So this is the book, guys. And I feel like, handsome young man, I feel like her bringing it through to here, it requires full attention. I've got questions that have to do with Ubaba as well. I've got questions that have to do with you.
Yeah.
I've got questions that have to do with handling the whole thing and also bringing everyone back to functioning order. I've got questions that have to do with how you are rationalizing this whole thing going forward, which will ultimately lead us here. But I feel like for the purpose of the experience up until this point, we've actually done justice.
Yes.
I'm very happy. I had a lot of questions, but as you are narrating, you're answering them.
You liked.
And that's why I'm so quiet. I'm like, each and every question that you had, you're just bringing it clear. So I'm just going to beg Mama Uguti Senzi part 2. I want us to dive into this book. I want you to tell the guests, the viewers, to tell. Maybe even now we can tell them where they can get it. If they're that pressured to get the gist of the story, then they'll probably have to read the book and go ahead of us, and it adds a little bit of suspense as well. So maybe before we cut this part 1 off, there's your camera. Can you tell us where people get this book? Why would people want to get this book from you? And why did you write it? Maybe in just a summary, yeah.
Okay. So let me start with the why. Actually, how the book came about, I was falling apart. I was a dead woman walking. I had to be admitted in a psychiatric hospital. And I think that's the part we'll unpack.
Okay.
Because most people, especially Black people, we think, even myself, but they helped me. So I had a journal because I had started journaling.
Okay.
So some days I'll write nothing because I was so angry at God.
Okay.
But we'll unpack that on part 2. So I started journaling, and then I asked my husband to buy me a 2 choir.
Okay.
And then I would write. So if I think about the day I was singing "It Is Well With My Soul," I'll say "It Is Well With My Soul" and write what was happening on that day. If it's the day I got a call, if it's the day I was arranging the funeral, what. So I will write. I was journaling. It was my feelings. I didn't know I'm writing a book. Then I got home after I was discharged. I'm looking at this journal. I'm like, I asked my nephew, Junior, can you please type this, but chronologically? You know, then I marked chapter 1, chapter 2, you know. And I sent it to one neighbor of mine. He's an author and a publisher, Mr. Elijah. And I was like, will this work as a book? And he said, definitely. So that's how the book came about. Okay. So the first chapters of the book are very raw, just like I was explaining how my son passed. But then I think the last half of the chapters is about exactly what you were saying, which we'll unpack in part 2. Okay. How did I navigate the pain? How did my husband, his journey, the kids, a functional mom, a functional wife. I work. So what about work and all those things? Yes. So, and the one person said, oh, you've written a book, so you are healed. I'm nowhere getting close to being healed. It's so hard to accept that my son is gone. So the book, God works. I believe in God so much. My relationship has been repaired. So, and I will unpack on volume 2 because we had an accident, me and my daughter, again, just 4 months ago. Okay. So that's where I'll then unpack how this book came about and what is happening. No. Those who would like to have a copy, because the book is Living with an Angel, because I believe that my son was an angel. And then it says a mother's journey through loss and love. It's about me unpacking. So you can WhatsApp me on 081 512 1913. And then for people that stays far, I courier it. I use PEP, PEP to PEP. But those who are close to me or around Centurion or wherever, I've got ways of getting it.
To them. But, no, thank you.
Yeah. And the book is about narrating what I've narrated, but also how my faith got restored and how in the midst of pain and in the midst of darkness, you get to understand that you still need God. And the unfortunate part is that even when you pray, after saying amen, it doesn't mean that the pain goes away. The pain is still there. You just need to trust that God is carrying my family. Yeah. God is carrying me. One day he will restore the joy that the devil stole. Yeah. But that one day, I don't know when it will be. Yeah. But I'm trusting the process. I'm trusting God.
No, thank you so much. I would personally like to dedicate this book to all the mothers who came to this platform to talk about how they lost their children. I think you all have angels that you've lived with. And on this cover tends to represent your angel. Yes. And you will find yourself in here. You will relate to this experience because this is just like so many other moms who have come through narrating what you are saying. And this book is so relevant. I wish I had the money to buy it for all those moms. And I feel like maybe I must try to start raising the funds to sort of get enough copies so that we can send them out to, all the different moms who came out here, because this for me would be a very profound gift to a mom who lost their loved one. Yeah. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate the support and the love that you have given us. Today, we were with the angel. We were hearing a transition. We were hearing a movement on how someone has rationalized this, experience of their lives. And I learned so much. I was, I was going through it. The reason I was quiet was because I'm also trying to sort of rationalize what I'm feeling when she's narrating. So that's why I'm so quiet, because I'm just like you at home. I'm here along for the ride, but I'm also learning. Thank you so much for liking, subscribing, sharing, and doing everything that you are doing in the back end to move us forward as a channel. I really, really, really treasure you, and I love you. Feel that you are a big part of this family, and continue being with us so that we can continue sharing and unpacking. This is Mraro. At the Hope Revolution podcast, from me and the guys in studio and our beautiful guest. We'll see you on the next one. It's cheers for now.
Thank you.